Miraculous Ladybug. That's it, that's the intro. I recently made a video where I rewrote Ruby's power system and it was kind of fun. And then someone asked me to try the same with Miraculous Ladybug and I thought, why not? Now I don't expect this to automatically become better than the show or something, and things tend to change when you actually start creating a story. Execution is just as important as the concept. This is just where I would have started out if tasked with creating the show's power system. Who knows where we would have gone from there. In my last Miraculous video, I emphasized that the problem with Miraculous is having too many heroes, so that's going to be my most significant visible change, cutting down on the number of Miraculous from too many to 7. But while I am making those changes, I will endeavor to keep as many things as possible the same. But the 7 Miraculous and the Kwami within them, as well as their holders, are definitely going to be undergoing some changes. So with that in mind, let's begin. Creation is inventive. She's the source of everything that ever was and ever will be. And things can't really come into being without some experimentation. The Miraculous exist as a sort of experiment. The spirit of creation was interested in seeing how humanity would react to such power, so she pitched it to her equal and opposite, the spirit of destruction. Destruction closely follows everything creation does. Once something comes into being, it's immediately subject to the forces of entropy, so he's always with her. But destruction has another goal, making sure creation doesn't make a permanent mistake. After all, if one of her experiments goes wrong, she can't undo it herself. Like yin and yang, the forces aren't completely unconnected. I've described them like living beings, but in actuality, they are omnipresent forces that are deeply linked in a way humans can barely comprehend. And so, shortly after the dawn of human society, creation asked the other forces of the universe if they would like to take part in her experiments. Then, she forged special items in the fashion of human accessories to hold just slivers of the powers of the universe. The forces that answered the call are action, preservation, transmission, and 2 relatively younger forces born from the existence of sentience within the universe: emotion and perception. Of course, humans have tried to control these powers, but they usually prove to be too much. Atlantis once thought it could control destruction. Now people don't even believe it was a real place. The Order of Guardians tries to regulate the use of Miraculous, and Tiki, the avatar of creation, is fascinated enough by their organization to interact with them, but none of the other Kwami are interested in them. This has led to a ton of events where the Guardians are far more partial to the Ladybug than they should be. Humans tend to think of creation as exclusively a good thing. Unlike the actual show, people are very aware of what Miraculous holders are. They've popped up too much in history to be a secret. So when Marinette, Dupain-Cheng and Adrien Agreste find the jewels magically appearing on their persons, they are shocked, but they know what they are. Usually, the Miraculous are used to fight magical threats. There are other superheroes in the world, but these are the strongest forces in existence. Once in a while, a Miraculous wielder becomes a threat and usually has to be put down by the other Miraculous. Because of that, the Kwami created a rule about keeping identities secret for as long as possible. It's not an absolute must, but it is preferred. No one truly knows what is and isn't caused by Miraculous wielders in history, who in the more technologically deficient past could operate with far more secrecy. And then Hawkmoth happened. Gabriel Agreste, after studying the arcane arts, came to realize he could save his wife from death if he combined and wielded the powers of creation and destruction. He already had access to the Miraculous of emotion because of reasons, and with his vast resources he set out to look for more. He found the Miraculous of transmission, and he used magic to combine them. Under normal circumstances, combination is simply not possible without severe degradation. As it stands, Gabriel is very slowly dying. Just slow enough to last however long the show is. But transmission and emotion are not so opposed. If someone tried the same with creation and destruction, death would be instant. The planet also probably wouldn't survive. Gabriel thinks he can overcome this limitation by sheer force of will. Spoilers, He can't. No one can. The Miraculous were an experiment, but now that two of them are being so flagrantly abused, the experiment is over. The conclusion? Some will use it for good, some for bad. It's better they don't exist. Especially because not only is Hawkmoth's abuse a sign humanity could destroy themselves, but it also means they've reached a point of magical knowledge that they don't really need the Miraculous to protect themselves anymore. Now the Kwami's ultimate goal, spearheaded by Plague, who usually has to clean up Tiki's messes, see dearest family, is the complete destruction of the Miraculous that bind them so they can rejoin the great concepts they were derived from, which will be done the second every single Miraculous is accounted for. This is the new origin of the Miraculous and the Kwami. So let's go into more detail. Kwami are strange beings, infinitesimally tiny pieces of forces of the universe made, well, not quite flesh, but close enough to be accepted by humans. They will do whatever their holder wants as long as their holder stays true to them. Otherwise, they will take their Miraculous and leave, and you will not be able to stop them. Miraculous are attracted to and best used by those with mindsets that match the Miraculous in some way. No two Miraculous holders are exactly alike. Looking at the show, I don't see why the Kwami are so powerless. Why do they need humans to protect them? Who created them with such terrible weaknesses as to essentially be slaves to whatever human puts them on? In this version of the story, I'm not entirely removing the fact that they need to do what they're told, but I'm severely limiting how that works and making it so that Hawkmoth's capability to abuse two Miraculous at the same time is specifically because of something that hasn't happened before and couldn't have been accounted for at the time. Also, the animals the Miraculous are based on can change based on whatever animal currently catches the Kwami's fancy. There's also one more change I would like to make. When transformed, the Kwami can now talk to their wielders mentally. And no, this isn't just because it happened in Jade Armor, which is a show I actually just reviewed and I think you should check out. I think the video was pretty good. It's just always struck me as strange that the Kwami can't communicate. Plus, since temporary holders are, temporary, it would be difficult to have them interact with their Kwami any other way, which is what I want. I also must emphasize that the Kwami are static characters. Their flaws are just expressions of their inhuman existence as perceived by the cast. They are concepts made not quite flesh. They will not be having character development. Note to self, write a story about what happens when a concept has character development. Each Miraculous also comes with a weapon type that reflects what the Miraculous is all about. And you should never forget that these are just the forces that got involved with humanity through the Miraculous. There are many more that could become a factor in many other ways, one of which you will see later. Now, let's talk about the Miraculous, what they can do, and who they can do it with. If you ask me, as they exist in the show, the Butterfly and Peacock Miraculous are a sign of poor world building for the Miracle Box. They are, quite frankly, overpowered and do not function like any other Miraculous. Just the fact that their powers can be neutralized by Ladybug, who has to de-evilize them, makes it clear they were designed separately from the other Miraculous. Can Ladybug neutralize every other Miraculous power, or is it just the two that the villains happen to have? In this rewrite, none of the Miraculous could actually stand up to the power of creation and destruction individually, let alone going against both, regardless of the ages of the users. Hawkmoth's ability to do so is unnatural. So is his ability to wield two Miraculous. He achieved both of these ends with magic. First, he altered his personality to make himself match up to both Miraculous, closing off and bottling his emotions to become more suitable to the Peacock, and increasing his desire to spread his influence and control over others to increase his appeal to the Butterfly. Adrien thinks his dad has closed himself off and thrown himself into work after his mom's disappearance. Gabriel is willing to sacrifice anything to bring Emil back. Nuru is the Kwami of transmission. He is the concept of sending and receiving things. Normally this manifests as teleportation, sensing the location of others, even mental communication. He loves the idea of traveling, communication, and just generally being in motion. Dusu is the Kwami of emotion. Her power is to manifest her wielder's emotions and desires, sometimes as powers, sometimes as sentient beings. She's the most expressive Kwami, as well as the one with the best understanding of humans and their motivations. After all, more often than not, she is their motivation. She doesn't quite get when people feel the need to ignore their emotions though. Gabriel has combined them so he can sense the emotions of others, force manifest powers onto them, and influence them to do what he wants. He can't go face the Ladybug and Black Cat on his own. They destroy him. But if he attacks enough times with a stream of supervillains, he only needs to win once. Also, the whole sending butterflies through portals thing. He can do that from the start so they can't be traced back to him. Both Miraculous come with two different kind of weapons. A ranged weapon for transmission that Hawkmoth primarily uses as a bow, and armor for emotion, which he primarily uses as a helmet. The thing is, transmission and emotion are not so opposed to each other that the consequences are minimal. Creation and destruction, as entwined as they are two opposites to truly combine the way Gabriel intends. Speaking of which, Tiki is creation. She loves to make things, be them objects or even experiences. So she matches with creators, those willing to put new things out into the world, good or bad. I know Tiki is portrayed as the more rule-following Kwami in the show, and no Kwamis really care for rules. Plagg himself cares less, but Tiki will be just as quick to disregard one if it might lead to something new. She would absolutely be on board for all of Marinette's craziness in the journey to start a new relationship with Adrien, even if it takes time. Time means nothing to her. In all honesty, Hawkmoth kind of fascinates her because of how he's using magic to create something that she never saw coming, something new. And honestly, if Gabriel didn't alter himself the way he has, he'd probably best match with her than any other Miraculous. Though when it comes down to it, Tiki does want to free her fellow Kwami and make sure she and Plagg aren't combined. She doesn't want to have to create a whole new species to experiment with. Yet. Destruction isn't the only thing that can be disruptive. Most acts of creation tend to disrupt the status quo. It emphasizes how the two forces need to balance each other. Tiki is Marinette's wise mentor, but she does have a blind spot where she will insist Marinette breaks into school to finish a project she had to hand in before it was complete. Part of Marinette's arc is figuring out when to listen to her Kwami and when to ignore her. The Ladybug weapon is an infinite rope that can be tied into various constructs like nets and grappling hooks or even a garrote wire. It's extremely versatile. Marinette uses it in the form of a yo-yo. Marinette's innate power is Lucky Charm. She's pretty scatterbrained and prone to doing things in a very overcomplicated way, so when she creates whatever she needs, it's usually extremely convoluted. By the end of the show, she'll be in more control of her creative mind and learn to avoid unnecessary steps, capable of making straightforward and powerful lucky charms that require less effort to do more. Plagg breaks stuff. He revels in destruction. He is destruction. While humans take issue with his acts of destruction, they do serve an important function, keeping creation in check, making sure the stuff she makes never gets out of hand and making space for better creations. Plus, she makes so much stuff for him to destroy. Balance. Plagg values freedom, and in a way, the things made by creation can often bind you down, and he seeks the same value in his holders. Adrien is a free spirit bound by the chains of his father's control, chains he wants to break free of, and Plagg resonates with that spirit. He doesn't see how going to school fits with that idea though. Adrien thrives by doing unorthodox things, and in his hero form comes across as aloof and disorganized, but it works for him as opposed to Ladybug's more ordered approach. Where Ladybug can come up with a plan meant to keep everything intact, Chat's the kind of hero who can and will break things to succeed. This version of Adrien also loves destruction the way Marinette loves making things. Demolitions and demolition derbies are his favorite form of entertainment. Plagg is an enabler who will let him cause all the chaos he wants, so Adrien has to act as Plagg's balance. After all, Plagg is a god. Adrien is human. Adrien can't simply live destructively. Plagg doesn't get it though. But he's had enough wielders to learn to tolerate that no one is really going to just destroy stuff. And it's for the best. If you destroy it all at once, you don't get to see the entropy. Adrien's power is Cataclysm. He can wield destruction in his hand, but it's unwieldy. An aspect of his arc is learning not to break anything and everything. By the end of the show, he'll be able to be extremely selective about what he destroys, down to robbing a fruit of its taste or destroying a virus within a person. Completely controlled destruction. As for his weapon, the Black Cat usually gets a staff weapon of some kind. It's the most basic way to break stuff. It can be a bow staff, a spear. For Adrien, it's a staff like in the show, but it also acts as a sheath for his sword, because he's a fencer. So you've probably noticed a trend in the character arcs I'm describing, and that's that the Kwami aren't really meant to be reliable sources of advice. They are unrestrained forces of nature that need to be balanced out to prevent mass damage. Adrien and Marinette aren't so much learning from them as they are learning when to and to not listen to them. Also, I want to use this section to strip Ladybug of some uniqueness. There's no reason for Ladybug to be uniquely suited for purifying Akuma and Amox. Now, any miraculous wielder can undo any Akuma by simply purifying the magic merging Dusu and Nuru's powers. As for fixing the aftermaths of the battle, I think the most interesting idea would be to have it so it's done by another force. Specifically, time. When the power used to fuse the peacock and butterfly are removed, the resultant magic can be used by miraculous wielders to connect to the forces, and they use this connection to call in a favor from time to undo all the damage caused by the villain. And now that we've talked about the big ones, let's talk about the temporary holders and what I have in store for them. I already made a video about why the temporary holders suck, and it's because there are way too many miraculous, and being a hero tends to have little effect on the characters and the actions they take, making them narratively less important than they should be. So I've decided to cut the number down to simply having 3 extra holders. The miraculous left are Perception, previously known as Illusion, Preservation, previously known as Protection, and Action. Honestly, the arrangement of the miraculous in canon is pretty vague and all over the place. So we have Creation and Destruction, and then a step below that we have Illusion, Protection, Action, Transmission, and Emotion. And then below that we have Elation, Multiplication, Migration, Determination, Perfection, Evolution, and the like. Multiplication? Perfection? Really? I defy anyone to explain how the Dragon Miraculous has anything to do with perfection. Like, what is the logic behind their names and placements? You know, besides the ION suffix. And then there are other miracle boxes which include things like freedom. Is that the DOM suffix box? Is there a Boredom Miraculous in that box? So yeah, all the other miraculous are not included. With this system, only specific kinds of people can wield the miraculous, and that means the heroes aren't exactly spoiled for choice. Now, this actually created a dilemma for me. I wanted more than 3 people to be heroes, but I deleted most of the miraculous. And then the answer came to me, and it was kind of obvious. Who said Ladybug has to be the only one allowed to pick temporary holders? Without the guardians in charge, Fu isn't there to arbitrarily only be teaching Marinette, so there's no reason only she can choose the next holders. And like that, the number of slots went from 3 to 6, with Chat and Ladybug having their own choices for who they want to be the temporary holders for each miraculous. And because I'm keeping the show's whole the heroes are secret from each other gimmick, they don't know who the others' choices are. As for the concept of the temporary heroes, with the way Hawkmoth has abused the peacock and butterfly, Tiki and Plague have decided to limit the use of the other miraculous. So outside of times where their abilities are absolutely necessary, they remain in a space only accessible by Ladybug and Chat Noir. So, let's go over the particulars. Tricks is the concept of perception. The ability to perceive all things is under his purview, but so is the ability to deceive others. It depends on the wielder. Tricks prefers people who have lives revolving around the truth, be it revealing or concealing it. He's also a bit of a prankster who enjoys making jokes and playing tricks on others, but conversely, he also likes revealing truths to them. Ladybug's choice of wielder is of course Alia, the journalist with the hunger for truth. Chat's choice is someone Adrien Agreste knows to be a rather deceitful little shit, Felix. Now I know what you're thinking, Felix doesn't live in Paris. You're right. This is a backdoor plug into a future video I'm planning on making rewriting Felix's character and his relationship with Adrien. Subscribe so you don't miss it. But if that explanation doesn't really satisfy you, it doesn't really matter because Felix isn't a great match for Trix. He's good, better than anyone else Adrien would give it to, well, besides Alia, but it's obvious that Alia is a much better match. So Adrien can give it to him once while he's in Paris, then they can just decide they prefer it with Rena. Felix is much better suited for a different Miraculous. The interesting thing is that they don't have the powers you'd expect. Alia's power isn't one you would expect from someone who pursues the truth. It's the ability to use illusions to obscure it. Illusion. Felix's power, Revelation, allows him to reveal things that are hidden. Alia, as it turns out, has a knack for deception even she wasn't aware of, which can play into the possibility of the Rena furtive plotline and could make her conflicted about how dedicated she really is to her journalistic integrity on the inside. But once she comes to terms with all of that, she'll be able to use better illusions and even use Revelation better than Felix ever could. Felix is deceitful, which you think would make him a great match, but he doesn't actually enjoy what he feels he has to do, which gets in the way of the true power of the Miraculous. As for the Fox's weapon, it's one that must be deceptive in nature and capable of attacking from different angles if wielded properly. Felix uses a whip, though it's not exactly a perfect interpretation. Alia's flute also doubles as a blowgun. Alia still goes by Rena Rouge. Felix goes by Fantasy Fox. It's a play on Fantastic Mr. Fox and the word fantasy. He is definitely Adrien's cousin. Waze is kind of Tiki and Plag's rebellious son, and he's more of a mama's boy. He first came into being when Creation created the second thing she ever made, this time accounting for the concept of destruction that she was now sharply aware of and making something that could resist it. This, paradoxically, makes him Plag's go-to example of destruction forcing Creation to improve. They don't get along though, even though Waze is as omnipresent as the big two in everything. Waze embodies resistance to damage, entropy, and all things Plag does, preserving Creation, but that also makes him prone to preferring stagnation. He's partial to wielders with a strong desire to protect and maintain things. In the hands of Nino, Ladybug's choice, this translates to shelter, a shield that protects others from damage. This version of Nino has a bit of a savior complex, especially regarding his sheltered best friend, Adrien. In the hands of Chat's choice, Kagami, a girl who closes herself off emotionally to avoid being hurt, it translates to resistance, an ability that makes the wielder invulnerable. Yes, I did just take that from the Ox Miraculous. However, in opposition to Waze's stagnation, both users need to mature and learn to not fear destruction. The overprotective Nino needs to learn that others can protect themselves and that sometimes he needs protection. And Kagami needs to learn to not be so scared to open up to others. Once they do, they'll be able to use more interpretations of the powers of preservation, including the other hero's ability. The turtle's weapon remains a shield because why fix what isn't broken? Nino remains Carapace, while Kagami is Yokami, a mix of yokai and kami, the Japanese word for turtle. Goodbye Ryuko, you will be missed. The B and its control over the concept of action. It used to be subjection, but that got retconned apparently. Thanks Thomas, that makes my job much easier. Pollen is all aspects of action in a tiny body, but also inaction. After all, the choice to do nothing is still a choice. Pollen has two modes, overactive and zipping around to interact with anything and everything, and calm and subdued, observing things before taking action, and then becoming overactive and zipping around to interact with anything and everything. But action is meaningless without intent, So Pollen has two opposite preferences for wielders: those who know what they want and take it with no hesitation, and those who are indecisive. But unlike the other Kwami, Pollen actively wants to do something with her wielders. She wants to teach them about the appeal of the opposite. She's observed that the happiest humans can balance action and inaction, and unlike the others, she's not so tied down as to not adapt to people. Plag almost gets it, but not quite. When Chat gives the Kwami to Chloe, Pollen revels in Chloe's decisiveness, but she takes on the part of the worker bee and advisor, helping the girl rein in her impulse to do literally the first thing that comes to mind. After all, with a power like Venom, the ability to prevent people from taking a specific action, it's important to think about what action you want to keep them from taking. Yes, I'm changing Venom from just being a paralytic. Now it will make you incapable of taking a specific action by significantly slowing you to a standstill whenever you try it. Once improved, it becomes a ranged attack that she, with more patience, will be able to use more effectively. Also, Chloe's falling back into villainy. Not doing it. I've already put Felix on here, and I'm not undermining another one of Chat's choices for heroes. Also, I personally think Chloe's just got a lot more narrative potential if you go through with her redemption. As for Ladybug's choice, well, I was kind of in the air about who to give it to. I like Juleka and think she'd slot perfectly as Marinette's opposite on the spectrum, but I feel I'd have to rewrite her story to make her closer to Marinette, more than I've really rewritten anyone else's story. And I could. It is my video. Sabrina's another option, but Marinette would not give her a Miraculous. I'm sorry, she just won't. Honestly, Zoe's probably my first choice narratively. Yes, that's Zoe. Think of the drama. The two sisters, both of whom have reacted to abuse and neglect so differently that they inadvertently wield the same Miraculous in opposite ways. Should I make a video rewriting Zoe? Okay, let's go with Zoe. With the younger sister, Pollen becomes a drill sergeant, urging her to take action with her power, command, which will make the person commanded do something they are told, but only in relation to the authority in which they are commanded. Zoe will need to learn to be a lot more decisive and stand up for herself to use it effectively. And like those before them, both heroes will eventually learn to use the other's power. Yes, Zoe is kind of my way of recreating Juleka and Roar's dynamic. Sue me, like I said, I really like it. The weapons? 2 brass knuckles. Yes, I just said brass knuckles. Make them get up close and personal with the action. I mean, just picture the pure comedy of the idea that Chloe will have to start fist fighting Akuma very personally. Chloe can remain Queen Bee. Zoe becomes the much sweeter Honey Bee. Yes, someone made a comment about wasps stealing from bees in my Too Many Heroes video, and I thought it was funny, but now I can't bring myself to use the wasp theme on Zoe. Especially in this video thematically. She and Chloe are 2 bees in a hive. I think my interpretation of the temporary heroes has a lot of narrative potential, as I've mentioned in their sections. They are opposites, but their powers reflect them. It could lead to a lot of fun and character development as well as interesting character matchups. With the ability to mix and match temporary teams, there is no limit to the number of character combos you can do. Imagine a team with Felix, Chloe and Kagami together. One thing I'd want to see is an adventure where Ladybug and Chat are indisposed and somehow all 6 temporary heroes can work together, as we can see the pairs finally interact with their opposites. Though don't misunderstand my enthusiasm, they are still just temporary heroes, unless you find a way to write everything so that they become more permanent holders a la the season 5 finale. This is still very much the Ladybug and Chat Noir show. When I was making this video, I really wanted to emphasize on the nature of the Kwami and how they are not so much great mentors as they are influences on their human partners. Human partners who need to learn when to listen to the Kwami and when to ignore them, because the Kwami aren't humans. They are forces of nature, and forces of nature don't usually give the best advice. I don't expect that most people go around asking tornadoes for romantic advice. So that's my rewrite of Miraculous's power system. What do you think of it? Like it? Hate it? Comment your thoughts down below and hit the like button. Yes, even if you didn't like it, hit the like button anyway. Also, check out my playlist for Miraculous Ladybug content and subscribe for more. Thank you and good day.